Hey, what's up? It's your old pal, Mr. Cook, and we're going to work on the Algebra 2 practice final. This is the multiple choice final exam review. So let's get started on it. Okay, so here is the formula sheet that you guys are going to see for your final exams. We're going to be referencing back to this as we work through. Also, something to keep in mind. You can do a lot of this stuff on your calculator, so just make sure you have a calculator handy as well, especially a graphing calculator if you have one available. If you don't, that's okay, because most of the stuff can be done on like a scientific calculator as well. If I have time, I'll try and go through multiple ways of doing these with different calculators and stuff, and hopefully that's not too confusing. Anyways, all right, so there are some nice things that you get with taking final exams that have multiple choice answers. And I've taken a bunch of these tests, so I kind of know some tricks, and I'll try and show you what they look like. But sometimes you just have to work through the problem, and so I'll show you how to do that as well. All right, first off, we're going to go through this problem right here, which says find the value of c that makes this trinomial a perfect square. So perfect square means that what you're going to have is some value over here, c, that makes the rest of this look like this, like a plus b squared. Or if you factor it, it's a plus b times a plus b. It's really easy to find this, and if you see a problem like this, all you have to do is just take the middle term, the b value, divide it by 2, which gives you -6. And you'll notice that -6 is an answer here, but that's not the answer, that's a distractor. What you need to do then is take that -6 and square it. Because when you're foiling out all this stuff, after you have it, you get a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. So that last number right there is going to be this number in the middle squared. So that's why we have to square it. -6 squared gives you positive 36, and 36 is our answer. So C would be the answer. Next up, simplify a radical. So it says the square root of -24. Whenever we have a negative inside the square root, it moves outside and becomes an I. So we have I times the square root of 24. And then from here, you can actually, if you have one of these nice little scientific calculators, you can just type in the square root of 24 if you want. So square root of 24, and then hit enter, and it reduces it for you. So it's 2 square root of 6. So that's 2I square root of 6 would be your answer, and that'd be D. Another way that you can do it is this. If you have one of these graphing calculators, for whatever weird reason, the TI-84s don't have this ability to just reduce radicals. So what you have to do instead is just use some common sense. So square root of 24, if you do that as just hit enter, you get some decimal answer. And then if you do the rest of the numbers here, so 2 square root of 6, because that's what the answer is, it's going to give you the exact same number. See, that's how you know that they're the same, because if they're the same, they're equal, so the decimal answers are the same. That's how I know that square root of 24 is the same as 2 square root of 6. All right, this one, if you have one of these graphing calculators, you can type that in exactly as it's written. So here's how you do it. You do parentheses, and then 1, and then plus 3, and then the I button is right over there. So you have to hit second to access all the blue buttons, and then period. So that gives you an I. And then do the same thing over here. So it'd be 5 minus 4I. Hit enter, and you get your answer, which is 17 plus 11I. I'm pretty sure even these ones have it somewhere. Let's see here. Where would be the I button? There it is, right there. So all I have to do is type in, using this one, 1 plus, parentheses, 1 plus 3I. So I just press this a couple times until it gets the I. There we go. And then 5 minus 4I. Enter, and see, same answer. Okay, next, simplify. So what we're going to do first is move the negatives outside of the radical, just like what we did in number 2. Move the negative out front, it becomes an I. So this becomes I times the square root of 9 times I times the square root of 10. Now the square root of 9 is just 3, so I get I times 3 times I times the square root of 10. Then if I multiply the two i's together, I get 3i squared, because I times I is I squared, times the square root of 10. And then I squared is -1, so this becomes 3 times -1 times the square root of 10. which then turns into negative 3 square root of 10, which is our answer, negative 3 square root of 10, B. All right, now for these ones, I'm going to show you a couple different ways to do it. First off, you can just use quadratic formula because this doesn't factor. So you can use quadratic formula and you get, your a value is equal to 1. Because, okay, let me back up a second, just in case you didn't remember this. Standard quadratic is written out like this: ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. If we're trying to solve it, we can label the a values. The a is the value that's right next to the x squared, which is 1. The b value is the one that's right next to the x, which is negative 4. The c value is the one that's adding all by itself, and that's the constant value. C equals positive 13. So quadratic formula is one of the formulas that you're given, and you use this to solve. So this would be using quadratic formula. So number 5 I can use over here for that. And then, just plug it into the formula as it's written down. Okay, so the formula looks like this. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and the whole thing over 2a. So if I plug all that stuff in, I get x is equal to negative 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 4 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 13. And then that whole thing over 2 times a, which is 1. And then, you just kind of work through this piece by piece. The negative of a negative is a positive, so it's 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 4 squared is 16. Negative 4 times 13 is a negative 52. And then that turns into 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 minus 52. I don't know why I wrote 15 there. 16 minus 52 is negative 36. And then move the negative out front, becomes an I, so I get 4 plus or minus I times the square root of 36. And we know what the square root of 36 is, that's just 6. So this becomes 4 plus or minus I times 6 over 2. And then we just divide the 2 out of the 4 and also the 6, and we get 2 plus or minus 3 times I. And so that gives us our answers, 2 plus 3i and 2 minus 3i. So D would be the answer here. Another way that you can do this is, and this takes a little bit of time, but if you really don't like the quadratic formula, you can try and plug this number in for the x values, and you should get 0. It's just another easy way to kind of look at it. So I'm going to do these page by page. That's the end of the first page of the work. So I'm going to stop here and then start up on the next page.